Jingles, being a lion is the greatest. I'm born into a family of kings, and I know that all throughout my life I'll be a king. I can't tell you how great it is, knowing that no matter what happens, my place in life is assured. Lazar, I can't even begin to imagine how satisfying it must be, not to worry about the future. How I would love to be a lion as well. As a giraffe, our futures are open, and it's a scary thought growing up. What do you mean, Jingles? Why should growing up be scary? Because, unlike yourself, I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. There are so many possibilities of what I could be. Narrowing them down to just one, it's impossible. There are so many things I enjoy doing. How am I supposed to pick just one? I can see how that would be scary, Jingles. Maybe you shouldn't think of it like that. Try to think of your future like a great big menu at a restaurant. You may want to order everything on the menu. You know you couldn't eat that much, or even afford it at all. You just have to find out what you enjoy the most and go for it. What do you mean, Lazar? Well, if you were ordering dinner, perhaps one time you could order fish, the next time pizza, the next time a hamburger. You try a little of each the first few times you go to the restaurant. Then, after a while, you will know what you like and what you don't. Eventually, you'll know exactly what you want each time you go to dine out. I think I'm following you, but with my future, how can I try out various jobs? I can help you with that, my friend. I've collected a lot of films about careers. I can show you a couple. That sounds like an excellent idea, Lazar. When can we Right now. Just look at the view screen, and the first film is about journalism. Journalism? What? Look at the view screen and learn, my friend.
The alphabet has only 26 letters. With these 26 magic symbols, however, millions of words are written every day. Millions of words to report the world in newspapers, words to tell the news of local happenings in thousands of suburban, small-town, and country papers. Millions of other words in magazines of various types, in farm periodicals, in business publications, in trade and technical journals, and in general and popular magazines. Giant presses print all these words, and someone buys them either on newsstands, through the mail, or from newsboys. First, however, words must be written, and there are many writing jobs on newspapers. If you visit the newsroom of a daily paper, you will find it very similar to any busy office, although arranged somewhat differently. The newsroom is the heart of a newspaper. The managing editor, who on most papers coordinates all activities of news gathering, sends certain reporters out on important assignments. This reporter is in a hurry, and for a very good reason. He's going to cover a fire. Covering a fire is usually an exciting event, but it doesn't come nearly as often as you might think. Amid the turmoil and confusion, the reporter must be able to think clearly and quickly, and he must get his facts accurately. Assignments of this type may keep the reporter out in bad weather for many hours of hard, tiresome work. But there's a real thrill in seeing your own byline over a story when it's in print. And there's always the feeling that you'll try to make the next story just a little better. A newspaper of any size divides its local territory into districts. Reporters are given certain beats in these districts, such as the City Hall, which they cover day after day. The hospital beat is a valuable news source, and one on which events sometimes happen with startling speed. Other reporters cover the airports, bus and railroad stations, which provide a good opportunity to interview celebrities, arriving or departing. Reporters on beats are known as outside men, since they work away from the office most of the time, gathering news. Every reporter must secure from the people along his beat a steady supply of the everyday happenings which fill most of the local news columns of a newspaper. The police station is frequently assigned to beginners. The cub reporter takes information and leads on news of crime, accidents, and death from the daily police record, or blotter. Although he gathers the news, the outside man often does not write the story himself, odd as this may seem. Much of the time he stays on his beat and phones in his information. This is especially true on the larger papers and on nearly all daily papers when the deadline is near. The information is taken at the other end by a rewrite man, who is usually a more experienced writer and is paid more for his work. After the story is written and before it is set up in type, copy readers edit it for errors, improve it here and there if they can, and write the headlines. Then the story is set in type by the operator of a linotype, a typesetting machine which casts the words in solid lines of lead type. The placing of the type after it has been set is often supervised by the makeup editor. He has already planned the general arrangement of the paper on a layout sheet and has selected a spot for the story among all the other stories, pictures, and advertising material. Practically all daily newspapers have special departments in which certain sections of the paper are written and edited. One of these departments handles the telegraph news, which it receives from the great press associations. With reporters and writers scattered all over the world, the press associations gather important news and relay it to hundreds of newspapers over special telegraph wire services. This teletype at the local newspaper is bringing in news reports from distant parts of the nation and world. The sports section handled in another special department. The sports reporter must be a specialist in his knowledge of sports. He gets his story right at the sporting event and often sends it into his paper play by play. The financial section is reported by experts in the field of business. Financial reporters and editors must be able to analyze and explain business conditions as well as to report them, and they must be extremely accurate, for even a slight error has been known to influence the financial market. The society section, for the most part, is handled by newswomen. Important social events are usually covered by society reporters in person. However, much of the news for the society is over the telephone. Women find it difficult to compete with men in general reporting jobs. So girls who want to be successful in journalism should prepare for work in the special women's departments. Home decoration, child care, gardening, and household hints are found in the homemaking section, a department handled by women. Also included are cookery, meal planning suggestions, menus, recipes, and attractive ways of arranging the table. Work in fashions, beauty care, and merchandise reporting affords further opportunities, almost exclusively for women. Music and dramatic critics must be authorities in their fields. They report from first-hand observation, and to hold reader confidence, they must be truthful in the information they give the public, and they must be fair to artists and performers. The editorial writer must be able to write on many subjects, but instead of merely reporting news, he analyzes it and explains its meaning, often expressing his personal opinions. He must reason accurately and fairly, and write in an interesting manner. To understand and interpret problems of the day, he must read and study continually, in addition to having a great amount of knowledge and experience. Another specialist is the political writer. He must interview political candidates and workers. He must also report a great many speeches and be able to interpret for the people who read his paper acts of government and the ideas of political leaders. The work of feature writers is found in the Sunday editions and in magazines, and these writers have names usually well known to readers. Some feature writers started their careers by writing about their hobbies. A number of magazines will buy articles on how to do things, and how to make things, especially if the writer can supply good illustrations. The columnist is another writing specialist. It's nice work, but it takes years of experience and a genuine talent for writing. Some columnists and writers of many other kinds of material are able to place their work with syndicates. The syndicate mimeographs copies and sends them out to be printed in hundreds of newspapers. Or at the local newspaper, a matrix is received from the syndicate. The matrix is made of material like heavy paper into which has been stamped words and pictures. It is placed in a casting box into which molten type metal is poured. The matrix serves as a mold and leaves its impression on the metal. When cool, the solid type metal, which now is similar to type, is removed from the casting box and the matrix may be discarded. The type is now ready to be used to print the original syndicate material on the newspaper's own press. The country editor, unlike the city editor, must spread his attention over all phases of the business. He must go out after news himself and from local merchants solicit the advertising that provides part of the revenue from his paper. He must then write the advertising as well as the news and plan the layout of each issue. And that's not all. He is also a printer, knowing every branch of the business. He's typesetter, pressman, and press feeder all in one. In fact, he has to know and be able to do a great many things which can be learned only through actual experience. And there's no better place to get this experience than on a small-town newspaper. Being able to set type by hand is almost a necessity, for in addition to his newspaper work, job printing forms an important part of the business of the country publisher. All this knowledge and experience seems a great deal to ask of one man, but he leads a happy life and takes pride in the fact that he is in business for himself. The publisher of a city paper has the responsibility of running a large organization. His is a good position and one you might do well to aim for, but there aren't many of them, as it is one of the top positions in journalism. You will probably start outside in just any kind of weather reporting news if you choose journalism as your life work. News reporting is a young man's job, for the reporter must have stamina and endurance to withstand the strain of long and strenuous hours of work. He must have the courage and perseverance to get the story in spite of obstacles. The qualifications of a newspaper worker are not easy ones to fill. Check your qualifications. Find out what courses you should take in school. If you don't like to write, you won't be happy in journalism. If you do like it, practice writing as much as you can. Your school newspaper and your English and social science your first assignments toward success.
Lazar, journalism is a fascinating subject. Covering the news, reporting the news, helping people find out what's going on in the world. But I don't know if that's really what interests me. Journalism is right for some people, but I don't think I'd like to be on the road my entire life. That's a valid point, Jingles. You would have to make a great sacrifice in order to cover world events. Journalism is very interesting. If only there weren't so much travel involved. There is another possibility, something like journalism, but without the travel. You'd still be able to cover the news. Really, Lazar? What career is this? Being involved in the production of radio or television. From being a crewman to a news anchor, there are all sorts of jobs if you're interested in the media. Being a news anchor on TV, or the radio, that sounds terrific. Please, tell me all you know about this particular career. I've got another short film that will explain what it means to be involved with television and radio, Jingles. But before we watch this clip, I have a few words of wisdom for you, my friend. What would those be, Lazar? Just as there would be sacrifices needed to be in journalism, there would also need to be sacrifices if you choose to go into television. Keep this in mind as you watch the next film. People on television, and to a lesser extent the radio, have very little private lives. You may find fame with this career, but the cost of it is usually very steep. With that said, look towards the view screen, Jingles, and learn about television and radio.
Inside your radio, you probably have, and perhaps you've taken the tubes out to test them. The vacuum tube makes it possible to transmit sound, whether by radio, a loudspeaker system, or a motion picture projector. The tube has been responsible for the growth of radio into a business involving millions of dollars. Like any business, radio broadcasting employs a great many people in general office work, such as correspondents, stenographers, file clerks, and bookkeepers. Executives and managers of special departments, salesmen who sell time on the air to advertisers, experts who select the talent for programs, are all a necessary part of radio broadcasting. Continuity writers prepare script, and other writers handle publicity, news, and material for special and farm programs. News commentators broadcast stories gathered from all corners of the world, often analyzing important events and expressing their own opinions regarding them. For regularly scheduled programs, the production department has a multitude of duties to perform, primarily concerned with planning and preparing the programs to go on the air. Sound effects add realism to dramatic programs and are produced by specialists in a small, although very interesting field. Actors and actresses perform for unseen audiences, and control men skillfully operate the apparatus which mixes sound effects, music, and dialogue. The best the world has to offer in music, drama, and comedy may be enjoyed in one's own home, for radio's greatest application is in broadcasting mass entertainment. Many programs are broadcast over radio networks, and telephone lines are employed to connect the studio with the various stations. As a program may originate in a studio at New York or Hollywood, the use of telephone wires makes it possible for stations thousands of miles away to broadcast the program. The master controls are operated by men who have advanced from the ranks. Their work requires perfect coordination of mind and hand, for station hookups must be made on the split second. During the short period allowed for station identification, telephone lines, which have been set up in advance, are connected to feed the program to the network stations. The maintenance of radio broadcasting equipment employs a large number of workers known as technicians. It is their job to see that the apparatus is kept in perfect working order. In the stations, we find these men at work on the amplifiers and on the power equipment. They are not developing new methods or devices, but are maintaining those which have already been developed by the engineer. Radio engineers are men technically trained in the field of electrical engineering as applied to radio and communications. They have brought about the high degree of perfection now attained both in broadcasting equipment and in radio receiving sets. This work of improvement and development is continually being carried on by the relatively small number of highly trained specialists who are radio engineers. Theirs are among the top positions in radio. These positions have been filled by men without professional training, but today there is little chance for a man to become a radio engineer without training in a first-class engineering school. Radio manufacturing in general is classified as unskilled work, as most of the jobs can be mastered in a very short time. Many women are employed assembling and inspecting radios as the work is not heavy. Ordinarily, such work does not lead to responsible positions and should be avoided unless one will be satisfied with employment in manufacturing. However, men with training are sometimes placed in the production departments of radio manufacturing plants to gain practical experience. This work serves also as a proving ground for these men, and those who qualify may advance to positions of greater responsibility. Because radio broadcasts are so popular, the public demands prompt and efficient repair service to radio sets. This has created a large field of employment. However, the supply of radio servicemen generally exceeds the need, and this makes it extremely difficult for any but the well-trained to succeed in the work. Often, the most successful radio dealers and salesmen are those who can talk with authority about the products they sell, frequently because they've had practical experience in radio repair work. The radio service field is not a good stepping stone to the radio engineer's job unless it is followed or accompanied by technical engineering training. A very interesting field of work is that of the radio operator who sends and receives messages. He must be able to send and receive the International Morse code at a specified number of words per minute. Granting of the commercial operator's license is based on a rigid government examination conducted by the Federal Communications Commission, and it must be renewed periodically. Radio operators are found on practically all large ships. They communicate with other ships and with radio stations on land. The operator at the land station sends and receives commercial messages, handles weather reports, and listens for distress signals from ships at sea. Air travel has become safe today largely because of the application of radio principles. On commercial airlines, the licensed pilots must be radio operators. In addition to flying the plane, they must report their positions and get their bearings, weather information, and landing instructions from the radio operators at the ground stations. The ground station operator does not have to be an aviator. In addition to handling messages of radio and how to make minor repairs in order to keep his station on the air, the operator's work is to maintain contact with planes in flight as well as to communicate with other airports regarding schedules, passenger reservations, and weather conditions. Men with radio training often find employment in allied lines using basic radio principles. Among these is the sound movie. Through the use of microphone, amplifier, and vacuum tube, the sound for motion pictures is photographically recorded on the edge of the film to form the soundtrack. When the soundtrack reaches the thousands of theaters, it is reproduced by means of a photoelectric cell, or electric eye, amplifiers, and a loudspeaker system. Maintenance men with fundamental knowledge of radio technique are constantly employed to keep this delicate equipment in working order. Public address systems also use some of the principles of radio. They range from the temporary and portable unit to permanent installations in large auditoriums. Many operators of portable public address systems own their own equipment, which is in demand at county fairs, sporting events, political rallies, and conventions. This type of work requires some special training, but the field is so crowded that it offers few really good jobs. The better jobs are those planning and installing the large permanent public address systems, but this work requires a thorough background in radio and acoustical engineering. Another field requiring thorough engineering training is the transmission of photographs by wire and radio. News services maintain photo transmitters at strategic points, and the newspapers subscribing to this service get the photographs over receiving instruments in their own offices. Television, the baby of the radio family, is creating openings for experienced engineers, most of whom are graduating from radio work. From the scene of action, cameramen televise events which you may see in your own home, if, of course, you have a television receiver. Television is opening up a new field, as does any new development. It is furnishing employment for men who design, operate, install, and service the transmitters and receivers. But men with radio experience, especially those who have prepared themselves through study and application, are given preference. Specialized training, study, and hard work are necessary in all phases of radio. In spite of the size and importance of the radio field, it doesn't hold great opportunity except for those who are able to secure the highly technical training which it requires. The best training is that obtained at a first-class electrical engineering school, specializing in communications engineering. If that is impossible, there are a few vocational and correspondence schools which offer excellent courses in the theory of radio. However, you should ask your school authorities to help you investigate any school, residence or correspondence, which you may plan to attend. Your high school preparation for entrance into radio work must lay a strong foundation in science and mathematics, the basis of all engineering, and especially of electrical engineering. You must, in addition, develop a high degree of coordination between hand and mind, because much of the work is very exacting in nature. Probably one of the best ways to get started is to make it a hobby and build an amateur station. This will give you the chance to put basic theory in practical operation. It will show you more quickly than anything else whether or not you can succeed in radio.
The money, the fame, but the cost. You are right, Lazar. Being on television or radio is very appealing, but the cost could be very high. While it would be great to be known to the entire world, the thought of always having people following me around, taking pictures, wanting autographs, it's just too much. It's not a lifestyle that is for everybody, Jingles. You're wise to see the faults so clearly, Jingles. Many people get taken over by the thoughts of money and fame, and fail to see anything else. You're a wise giraffe, Jingles. I know that I'm not interested in spending my life in radio. I'm also not interested in spending my life involved in television or journalism. Lazar, what am I supposed to do? I'm no closer to an answer now than I was when I walked through your door. Don't fret, my friend. We've only looked at a handful of possible careers for you to choose from. There are many, many more. We'll keep searching until we find something that fits you perfectly. Really? You're a true friend, Lazar. I'm so excited. Since TV, radio, and journalism did not fit me, what other careers do you think I'd be interested in? What can you suggest next?
Thank you.